Welcome everybody. I'm Denise Bertolotti, one of the volunteers with Long Island Rabbit Rescue Group, and we are here today to talk about GI stasis and of course all other bunny things that you want to discuss. The deal with GI stasis, let me tell you, a lot of times, and this might be a little bit sad, but the truth, people will email us who didn't adopt rabbits from us just with questions or things. And if their rabbit has passed away, I would say 9 times out of 10, they say, and I don't know what happened. And the answer to that, of course, I can't tell because I'm not a veterinarian, nor do I have their rabbit in my care to find out. But a lot of times, what happened probably was GI stasis. Now, GI stasis or gastrointestinal stasis, which Katie and Marianne will tell you more of the details about in a bit, can be a condition, an ailment that a rabbit suffers from, or it could also be a symptom of something else that's going on. So we're going to talk about all that. The non-medical explanation for the total layman in the house like I am is their digestive system gets all stopped up. Sometimes there are signs, and we'll talk about those, and sometimes as prey animals, rabbits completely hide the signs and we don't necessarily realize until it's too late or close to too late. So really getting to know the rabbits who are in your care is key to noticing this and acting immediately. Always, always, always your first piece of action to take if you even suspect something's up with your rabbit is call your veterinarian right away. You'll hear us say that over and over again because we can't remind people enough. And I'm someone too that if you're in the middle of something, like if an emergency pops up, I might forget that too in that panic. But good thing I have a lot of good friends around me to say, did you call the vet? That's always what we're going to say first. And it's not because we think you're dumb and didn't know to do it, but we're just going to ask for, did you call the vet? Did you call the vet? Always the first thing. And then from there are certain at-home treatments to get started before your veterinarian can see your rabbit if there is an issue. Now, again, Katie and Marianne are going to get into the more intricacies of it all, but just speaking from the general owner perspective, one way I always test to see if my rabbit is off, maybe he has something going on, is will he take a treat or not? That's usually like one of the questions besides did you call the vet? Then we'll follow up with, will your rabbit take a treat? That's my is barometer the right term there? That's one of my measures to see if he's okay. And he thankfully will always take a treat and say more, please. If he ever didn't, then I would know something was up. Interesting. Right now I'm bunny sitting for a beautiful girl. She's over there. She, due to her own digestive issues, doesn't get treats, is not allowed any treats of any kind. No alfalfa hay even, which we generally use as a treat. She just ran over here like, did someone say treats? I can't give her any. She doesn't get any salad either. So now to know, like, how do you know if something's up with her? And her family, really in tune with her habits, they told me if she does not finish her breakfast within 4 hours, there's a problem. That's intense, but talk about really having to know your rabbit. And that's really important too. So we'll address any specific questions after Katie and Marianne talk about the ins and outs and the tips and tricks. We appreciate everybody staying muted in the meantime. If you have questions as we go, pop them in the chat. We'll either address them as we go or we'll get them all at the end. And then of course, after the ladies are done, you guys can unmute and ask questions. And it doesn't have to just be about stasis. The Q&A could be wide open to anything rabbit related. Whatever you want to talk about, we're here for it. So I'm going to mute myself and let the bosses take it away.
Hey, Katie, you want to start? Or you want me to start?
Yeah. So I think where we need to start is how do we all know when our rabbits are sick? What are the signs to look for? And every rabbit is different. So it's going to be different for every single rabbit. So to add to what Denise said about treat testing her rabbit, first, yes, you want to treat test them, get a foolproof treat that you know they won't refuse in any situation unless something is up. But another thing that you can do to prepare yourself is to really set up a good routine for your rabbit so that their daily routine is always similar as much as you can make it, so that you know their behaviors too. So like one thing that with my rabbits, I know when I wake up, I don't necessarily wake up and feed them a treat to make sure they're eating, but I wake up and I say hello in a voice. And if someone doesn't come running out or gets excited for breakfast and they're hiding in a weird place or just sitting in a weird place, even, then I know to investigate and to bust out that treat that I know that they'll eat if they're okay. So really getting to know your individual rabbits and how they react to you, how they react to any type of food. Because one of my rabbits now is on a hay only diet. I can't give her treats. I can't give her salad. So I know her favorite strands of hay. So if I need to test her, I'll shove a piece of hay up to her mouth and see if she eats it. And if she's eating it, she's probably okay. But if she doesn't, that might make me want to investigate further. So Marianne, if you want to add anything to how do you know if your rabbit is sick?
Yeah, just those behaviors you talked about. And that also brings me back to what Denise said about the bunny she's pet sitting for. Unfortunately, this rabbit has a really sensitive gut and you cannot offer her a doodle or a treat or a smidge of banana. So in addition to the 4 hours is something that the owners figured out is a sign if she doesn't eat her pellets within 4 hours. 4 hours is also an awful lot of time to have to wait to figure out if something's wrong. So I'm sure her owners know this rabbit well enough to know if she's laying funny. Is she, the classic position is the rabbit seems to be pressing their, yes, Denise, and not pooping. But the rabbit
Even the poop sizing or
yeah,
shapes, or if the
that's
poops
true
change.
too. But this is like, okay, you're racing off to work in the morning. What
Yeah.
do you do? Is she pressing her belly against the floor? That's a classic pose because they're trying to get relief from that gas pain that comes with being in GI stasis. And what Katie said, did they fail to do their normal happy dance, you know, when you get up or when you enter the room? You want to start looking for patterns in their behavior so you can see when it's different. And then what we're going to talk about now is if you suspect something's up, you can get in there medically, literally with a thermometer. Talk about check the barometer, check the temperature, literally check the temperature, see if that engine is running in there.
And that's the first thing that I'll do. If they don't accept the treat or if I suspect something is off, the first thing I'll do, even before calling the vet, because it's something to tell the vet. You'll be able to, if you can get your rabbit's core body temperature with a rectal thermometer like this, quick read. I try to find the skinniest tip.
That's not a rectal thermometer. We use them rectally, but that's just
Oh yeah,
a use thermometer.
yes, digital thermometer. What was I gonna say?
You do that first before you even call the vet, so you have something to tell the vet.
Yes, because that'll kind of gauge the, I guess, level of an emergency. So my rabbits, I know my rabbits' temperature is supposed to be 101 to 103. So if it's below 101, then I know I need to warm them back up to their normal body temperature.
And that's something to do, again, especially if this is happening in the morning and we're in a rush and trying to figure out, are we calling in late or whatever, take the temperature, figure out what it is. If it's too low, you can put the bunny in her carrier, like Katie has there, with a heating pad in it, which will show you. And while the bunny starts to heat up, then you can call the vet and your boss.
Yes.
A lot of times though, just anecdotally from doing this for 23 years, a lot of times we tend to notice stasis at night more than the morning. A little more at night more than the morning, of course, and then the vet's closed at night. So the protocol that we recommend is something that you're going to do at home to keep your rabbit stable or even alive until the next morning when you can get to your rabbit savvy vet, because we don't recommend going to an ER hospital for stasis. I recommend going to an ER hospital for two things. Like if they're having a grand mal seizure, Actually, that's not even it. What were the two things?
Broken
Arterial,
legs,
pardon?
arterial bleeding, I think you said was one.
Arterial bleeding, and like a compound, like a, not even always a broken, not even always a broken leg, because you don't know who's on duty. And a lot
Yeah.
of overnight ER hospitals, um, 24-hour hospitals, they staff them with new residents, with new people. They're not putting the most senior experienced people aren't doing the overnight shifts. That's kind of falling to the newbies. And a lot of us know a little bit more about rabbit medicine than the newbies, because rabbit medicine is not taught in vet school. It's not their fault. They weren't taught it. So that's why we're so stringent and adamant about our friends who own rabbits learning how to do some real basic stuff at home to manage your own rabbit until you can get to your rabbit vet. That said, Catnip and Carrots has worked out a relationship with the veterinarians at VEG. We call it VEG, Veterinary Emergency Group. A lot of the emergency hospitals have very similar name, VREC, Veterinary Referral, Lives, Long Island Veterinary. This is VEG. The VEG in Carl Place, and only the VEG in Carl Place. If you are a client of Catnip and Carrots and you walk your rabbit into that animal hospital in the middle of the night, they have a deal, they have an understanding with Dr. Saber that they will page her. And they will say, your client Thumper is here, and the owner's report he's not eating. Dr. Saber will tell them what protocol she would like them to do. And then the owners are instructed to show up at Catnip at 8:30 the next morning when they open to continue management. That said, if you're not a client of Catnip and you walk into VEG, I cannot help but believe that they will take all of their learning. They actually had staffers at Catnip one day kind of trailing and learning, so they kind of understand what's expected of them for rabbits. So even if you are not a client of Catnip and Carrots, if it were my bunny in the middle of the night and I was really, really, really freaking out, I'd go to VEG. But first, I would learn how to take temperature and keep Metacam and a Reglan in the house and manage it myself until I could get to my rabbit vet the next morning.
Yeah. So something else that I do always whenever any of my rabbits are acting weird is I take notes. I write down everything that I do. I write down the date, my rabbit's name. I write down the doses that I give them, what their temperature is each hour that I'm taking it, so that I can give this to the vet once I get in there. So they already know how long this rabbit hasn't been eating, what their temperature has been, how it's been fluctuating, so that they'll have a better idea of what to do next, and what has already been given. So always keep a notebook handy in your emergency kit. So we should, I guess, talk about what you should have on hand so that you can do all these things at home that we're going to talk about. So the first thing is a digital thermometer. 10-second read is probably the best. So you're not sitting there with the thermometer and your rabbit for like 50 seconds waiting to get a read on it. The next thing that you'll have to get from your vet is Metacam. This is Maloxidil, but it's Meloxicam, which is Metacam, Maloxidil, Loxicam. There's some generic versions. And then Reglan, which is a motility med. And then we always keep infant gas drops on hand, which is simethicone. And this you can get at any drugstore or on Amazon or online. The Reglan is also prescription from your vet. And then along with the thermometer, you'll need some type of lubricant for the thermometer, because you're not going to just shove it in there without that. So I use All Good Goop. Some people use Vaseline, or any type of lube to get this all
KY,
sloppy.
I've used, in a pinch, I've used olive oil. Just
That
to
works.
get the
Coconut oil, yeah, that's a good one.
oil.
And then the other things that you we'll want to have is our stasis sheet, which I keep on my refrigerator. That way I'm not panicking to know when I should be giving what meds at what time frame. So this, if you don't have your rabbit's exact doses, this will give you a good idea of how much to give. And then I'll keep also a stethoscope, so I can listen to my rabbit's gut sounds. So that's something else you can tell the vet over the phone. So you say, hi, blah, blah, blah. My rabbit isn't eating. They're refusing their favorite treats. Their temperature is this. They do have gut sounds or they don't have gut sounds. Could possibly tell your rabbit, savvy vet, something. So that's helpful.
I'd like to interject. Gut sounds are good for the most part. And sometimes you if you have your rabbit and everything when we demonstrate how to give meds, I don't know if we're doing demos on this video, it'll probably be another video, but it's always done on a towel on the kitchen counter.
Yes.
Or but sometimes you can literally just press your head up against your bunny on the table and press his body against your ear. And sometimes just with your ear, you can hear gut sounds. And gut sounds can tell you a few things. Not necessarily if he's in stasis or not in stasis, because sometimes they'll have gut sounds and sometimes they won't. But as the evening progresses, as the day progresses, if you don't hear gut sounds and then you treat for an hour or two and then you start to hear gut sounds, that's a great sign. That's a great sign that things are starting to move again. You hear those little glorp, 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 glorp. You hear glorps, faint glorps inside. The other helpful thing about gut sounds is if it sounds really loud, if you put your bunny on the towel on the kitchen table and without even pressing your ear to their side, you can start hearing, oh, no, won't you hear loud glorps? That could be very helpful to the vet too. That is a hypermotal gut as opposed to a hypo. Hypo meaning, oh God, Latin. Hypo meaning low, motility, hyper meaning too much motility. So there are a few reasons why being able to listen to your rabbit's stomach is helpful, but it's not always going to follow a pattern. It's not always going to be a rabbit in stasis has no gut sounds, but it's helpful to see where you're going with them.
Yeah, but it is good to hear them.
Yes.
So like Marianne said, anything you do medication wise or listening to their gut sounds, you'll want to get them up on the table. I keep a shelf liner with my supplies so that it can keep the towel sturdy so my rabbit's not slipping and sliding around on the countertop. So taking their temperature, giving them medications, listening, all should be done on top of the table with this type of setup, or just something on the table that'll keep your rabbit from slipping and sliding around. So the next thing that we keep in our emergency kit is a heating pad. So there's different types of heating pads that you can use. I have a couple different ones to show you. I have a Snuggle Safe, which is microwavable, and that heats this up. It's good for on the go. If your rabbit's temperature was super low and you had to get to the vet, it's good to have this so that you warm it up, you put it in their carrier, and then you bring them to the vet so they're being heated while in the car. I also have this K&H heater that you plug in. It's just a low heating pad. And then just from the drugstore, these human heating pads work. Setting them to low, I think for a rabbit is best. You can put it on medium or high to get it to warm up faster, and then set it down to low once the rabbit goes on heat. So I'm going to show you, if your rabbit's temperature is below, usually if it's below 100, I'll put them on heat. If it's from 100 to 101, I'll try to keep them moving around. If they'll move around, because moving them around could bring up their body temperature as well. So the way that we set up rabbits on heat, I don't plug this in and put them on top of it and assume that they're going to stay on it, because they're not. They're going to jump off, they're going to hop off. They're not going to be insulated enough to really retain that heat and warm them up. So what we do is use either a carrier or a small or extra small dog crate. We'll do the same thing. So I'll have my newspaper on the bottom. I'll plug in my heating pad. And then I will put it inside of the carrier with the cord hanging out as much as I can so they don't chew it while they're sitting in there. Probably do it more on this side. And then I'll put a towel on top of the heating pad. And then I place my rabbit inside. I'll add little yummies to the front because sometimes when I've done this with my rabbits, they'll be on heat and I'll see them nibbling. So if I'll put their favorite things, I'll put a few doodles or I'll put like a piece of salad so that if they do start nibbling when they're on heat, you can probably take them off because it's a good sign that they've started eating. So I'll shut this. What I'll also do is drape a blanket over to really warm them up. I'll leave the front open, but I'll set it up so they're gonna get warm like this. So that's the best way to really set your rabbit up so that they can get their body temperature back up.
Yes, I was going to say another reason to put them on the table for all of this is because they will just get away from you on the floor. You cannot administer to a rabbit, sick rabbit, on the floor. We've realized over the years, and we'd be coaching people on the phone or over the, via emails, that folks were struggling getting the meds in or taking temp. And then all of a sudden it dawned on us that we never made it clear that they should be trying this on the counter. The rabbit's going to be nervous on the counter. He's not in his own zone. He's just been transported to another dimension in space. And most of the time, he's just going to kind of, oh shit, and chill on the counter. If you have someone else in the household who can help spot and make sure that he stays where he's supposed to stay, great. Know your rabbit, watch his body language. Sometimes if they're in a lot of pain or if it's a super nervous rabbit, they might try to take a flying leap and just risk death from the leap into space rather than whatever is going to happen to them on this counter. Know your rabbit and watch his body language, but 99 out of 100 times, you're going to have a lot better time doing this on the kitchen counter with good light at a counter height that you can work in and be close to his body.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to, a little caveat about the heating setup. I had been told, in my learning that if you can set up a small cage or some sort of containment where the heating pad can be on one side and then there can be no heating pad on the other side, so the rabbit could move off if he so chose, that would be ideal. And I've thought about that, and that's certainly ideal for reasons. But if you're sure the rabbit's temperature is too low, you kind of want to make him be on heat, especially as Katie said, you set that thermometer on low, you set the temperature on low, and you drape the carrier, and you're going to be checking in every 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes. You're going to be checking in. And doing some more of the stasis protocol that Katie is going to describe now, including medications and movement. But if you're leaving the house, it would be ideal that the rabbit could get off the heating pad. But this is for when you're going to be focused on the rabbit for a few hours.
Yeah. So before you get them on heat, sorry, you want to say?
I want to say, can we, after you finish that sentence, this is why I keep myself on mute and just hang in the chat because I love interrupting people. Can we talk about the high temperatures? Can we talk about fevers too?
Yeah.
Okay, before we move to the next phase. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And it's a really good reason why it's so empowering to be able to take temperature, because it's going to tell you on the rare occasion that your sick rabbit is not hypothermic, his temperature's not low, it's high, and he's brewing an infection somewhere and he's got a fever. My God, you do not want to put your rabbit on heat, then you'll cook him.
Yeah, most of the time it's going to be a low temperature situation, but I never want people to get confused and think not eating heat automatically. So we could just talk about fevers for a bit too.
Exactly. And for me, it's really difficult to feel the ears, to see if the rabbit's warm or cold. I think rabbits whose core body temperature is too low, their ears are going to sometimes feel warm. It's going to have to do with the rabbit. It's going to have to do with the time of the day. You also can have a feverish rabbit whose ears might feel cool. It might be first thing in the morning after they've been sleeping. They could be very sedentary because they don't feel well. It's not an accurate indication of what their core body temperature is. Really, taking their temperature rectally is the only way to tell.
Yeah. So before I put my rabbit on heat, the meds I want to give them, the most important is Metacam, because pain management in a rabbit that's not feeling well is essential. That's probably the single most important thing that you can do when you're home, is give them the pain medication, because a rabbit in pain just wants to die. So that's the most important. Then I'll give Reglan, which is the gut motility. And this is all before putting them on heat. I want to get these meds in them so the meds can start working as they're on heat if they need to be on heat. And then I'll give them the simethicone, which we have the stasis treatment sheet in Friends that we can share in this thing. And I follow this. So I give them the meds. If their temperature is low, I put them on heat for 50 minutes. After the 50 minutes are up, if they haven't started nibbling those little yummies that I put in the front, I'll take them off heat and take their temperature again. I want to see what their temperature is now. If it's gone up to normal, then we can release the rabbit from heat and try to get them moving around so that they start eating something. But if it's still low, something that we'll do is allow them to move around for a little bit if they're willing to, but if not, you can give them tummy massage for 10 to 15 minutes. And then if it was still low, or you give them tummy massage for 10 to 15 minutes, then you take their temperature. And if it's still low, you get them right back on heat, because you still need to warm them up. And you'll kind of continue that cycle. You'll continue this cycle, and every hour, simethicone, which is the gas relief drops, is something that you'll give every hour for 3 hours. So when you take them off heat, you can give them the simethicone, check their temperature, do tummy massage. If the temperature is normal, you can get them moving around. But if it's not, you get them right back on heat until their temperature is back up to 101 or more.
Katie did say 50 minutes, 50. So we kind of have this little system where we set up these like hourly chunks in our stasis protocol. So the first hour is 50 minutes on heat, like give it some time for the heating pad to potentially work on this cold bunny. We say 50 minutes because then that'll give you a little window to do the things Katie just said. Check the temperature again, see if it's going up. Is it staying? Is it going down? Where it's going, it's like with the gut sounds, where the temperature is going up or down, that's the most helpful information you have. Where is it moving? It's going to give you time to take a break and give another dose of simethicone. You're going to refer to the sheet for the medicine schedule. We can talk about them. It's just like there's just so many moving. Every 8 hours, every 12 hours.
Yeah.
It'll drive you crazy. Just refer to the sheet. Refer to the chart for the scheduling of the meds.
Yeah.
But the general idea is a rabbit who's not eating, we're assuming is in stasis. Take their temperature. Most of the time, the temperature is going to be low. So you're going to kind of put them on heat for chunks of time, taking them out to take their temperature, give the next dose of whatever meds is coming, and give them an opportunity to move around. That 10-minute window is also hugely valuable for another treatment, another prong in the treatment, which is get their gut moving by getting the rabbit's body physically moving, either by letting him run around. Ideally, let him run around a room he's normally not allowed in. He will be forced to explore this strange territory. A rabbit who feels like crap might not want to walk around his normal room, his normal X-pen. It's just, he knows where he is. He feels safe. I'm just going to crawl under this rock and die. Okay, bye. But if you put him in a strange room his instincts to explore will hopefully kick in, and he will walk himself around. Walking around is certainly the best thing we as humans can do when we have gas pain. If you've ever had a really bad gas episode, your instinct is to curl up in the fetal position on the couch and wait for it to be over. But the best thing to do is take a walk, get on the treadmill or take a walk around the block. The physical action of your digestive organs, your core engaged in movement, is going to be what's helping to break up and move gas bubbles out of the pockets where they're causing the pain and help them be eliminated from the body. So with rabbits, it's giving them a walk around a room in the house, and or another technique Katie will describe, which is belly massage.
Mm-hmm.
Cheapest and the easiest of all of these things to do, and possibly the most important, the mechanical manipulation of the rabbit's digestive organs in order to help them pass through what's troubling their gut.
Yeah, and let me get a rabbit so I can kind of demonstrate. Do you want to keep talking?
One right here.
Might as well.
Okay. As she gets a rabbit, Marianne, can you talk to us? Is there something like when your rabbit has a low temp, we can put them on heat. If your rabbit has a high temp, is there something to do? Do we grab an ice pack? What do we do? Of course, we've called the vet, we've taken the temp, we've taken the meds. Now what?
Call the vet. I'm trying to think of like what the magic number is for it to be super dangerous. But if 101 to 103 is normal, 104 can be normal. We've done adoptions where it's the end of kind of a long afternoon of families picking their bunnies, and we show them how to take temperature. So this particular rabbit who we're taking the temperature has had a very exciting afternoon, and it's 5 o'clock, and his temperature is 104.3. He doesn't have a fever. I know because of the context. I know because this rabbit was eating all day, that it's just up because, I mean, my temperature is higher right now than it was when I woke up this morning. So that's normal variation if you know the context. I would say anything above 105 and change, definitely call the vet. And also at some point, and we should get back to folks on this, Denise, I don't know what the number is before you start to cool them with ice packs. Instead of making a little heat chamber like Katie demonstrated, you take a laundry hamper or a giant litter box and you raid your freezer. You pull out the frozen peas and carrots. You pull out your Coleman Yeti ice packs and stuff, or whatever's frozen in there, and you cover them with towels, and you nestle the bunny in it, and you can stroke his ears with hands dampened in ice water. You have to do a cool down. That's super, super rare. Super rare, but yes, there are things to do when your bunny's too hot. You don't really do that until the vet tells you to. Thanks, Denise.
So to do tummy massage on your rabbit, you'll get them up on the table. If they're really not moving around, I do this on the floor. Sometimes even on the heating pad if their temperature is low. So it'll be like a double action. I'll drape a towel over them, and I'll do the massage on the heat. But you're simply just kind of like sloshing their tummies back and forth, just very gently, just like ping-ponging their belly back and forth, just like this.
And imagine all of their inner organs. You're just gently sloshing them. You want them, you're kind of just getting all of them moving in order to trigger those peristalsis muscles to wake up. And in addition to helping to dissipate the gas, it kind of does two things.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can even, if the rabbit will let you, you can lift up their hindquarters and support them and kind of like jiggle like that.
And using keeping your fingers together, you're not poking at the inside, but you're making a flat hand in order to, it's more like a shifting, and depending how meaty, chunky your bunny is, you can kind of use the their girth to kind of get a little momentum going. And as
Mhm.
Katie, this could work on the floor, depending on how lethargic your bunny is. If he won't walk around the room, if he'll let you, you can kind of hunker down, get down with him, cuddle in whatever spot he's loafed in, and move his gut for him. Do this to him instead of him having to move and do his own movement. It's not unpleasant, as you can see. But Katie, really get your hand in there and just kind of.
Oh yeah. I feel like I felt a lump on her. Sorry.
Oh, it's
Um,
just the nipple.
no, it wasn't a nipple.
Oh,
They're moving their stomach around.
and sometimes if you're lucky, you'll have a bunny who's obviously not feeling well. This massage process, it'll start out tense, whether you're up on the counter or if you're on the floor. They're not, most of us don't do that to our rabbits every day with the belly. They tense up because they have gas pain and you're making it worse. But if you're gentle and if you kind of wait for them to get into a rhythm with you, as the minutes tick by, and you should do this for many, many, many minutes, as long as they'll let you before you have to put them back on heat, if you have to put them back on heat. But you'll feel their bodies relax. Sometimes there comes a magical moment where you're dealing with a bunny and you feel that they're tense, and then they start to feel relief, and you start to feel their limbs go a little limp, and they go a little limp. That's a good feeling. That's a good sign. That's the same as not hearing gut sounds in the beginning, but maybe 2 hours into your treatment, then you start to hear gut sounds. Those are all wonderful, wonderful signs. A lot of times, well, sometimes folks reach out for help. It's late, it's 11 o'clock at night. Vets of course are closed. If I'm up and if I can help, I will invite families to bring the bunny to my house. And the reason I do this is because I had a lot of success over the years of turning them around. The minimum we hope to do is to stabilize them, or at least I feel better if I can get pain meds into them. The family will take them home and with promises of going to the vet the next morning. But what happens most of the time is we can turn it around in a few hours. I'm not saying don't call the vet, but if I'm up and I can receive you, I will help you. And the driving to my house, first of all, like, oh my God, we got to get him into a carrier. Sometimes that's a big deal. So there's the bunny's forced to move because he doesn't want to go in the carrier and he doesn't want to be lifted up. Good. So the bunny's moving in their home. They get him in the carrier, they get in the car ride. I advise folks, if it's winter, if it's cold out, crank the heat, make the car nice and toasty. Don't put the AC on in the summer. We're going to assume his body temperature is cold. The car ride, every time the car turns, we take it for granted, but we hold our bodies in certain positions when we know a turn's coming up so that you don't whack into the passenger next to you. The rabbits don't know that. So they're kind of thrown and swayed a little bit when cars take turns, and those gentle G forces sometimes do the trick, sometimes cure the rabbit. So I never really hesitate because, the car ride's too stressful. In this case, sometimes the car ride helps. And then by the time house, we take temperature, we get the meds on board. If we're really lucky, and it happens, within about an hour or so, that rabbit's eating hay at my house. That's the goal. And it's the goal for us to teach you how to do this at home too, so you don't have to go through the extra stress of getting to me.
Yeah.
And then it's your call. If you feel that by the time you go to bed, or by the time you get up in the morning, your rabbit is 100% normal, eyes are sparkling, he's doing a happy dance, he's doing whatever stuff he does normally, then you can either, cancel your appointment or not go to the vet the next day. Some people, he's not quite, he did nibble, he did poop, but the poops are small. yeah, go to the vet.
Something to add to that is if they're still not 100% normal, there could be something else going on. Last year, like today or tomorrow, my rabbit Rosie went into stasis. I brought her. I don't know if I brought her to your house that night. I don't think I did. And by morning, she started to nibble, but she still seemed off. Something was off, and I'm like, something's not right. So I brought her to catnip. She's a little bit older, so we did blood work, and she ended up having liver torsion, and she needed emergency surgery. So there could be a small chance that it's not just stasis. There could be something else going on that's more serious, not necessarily liver torsion, but something else that your rabbit will need medical attention for. So if they're not fully 100% normal, I highly recommend getting them to the vet if you can. The rabbit's heavy vet.
That's an excellent point, Katie. And that's when stasis is the symptom of something else. Could be liver torsion, which is kind of I don't want to say it's a new phenomenon because I'm sure it's been happening to rabbit bodies since rabbits were invented, but it's kind of something new on our radar. I'd never heard of it until about 10 years ago. And back then it was a death sentence. It was a quick, very serious problem that usually meant the rabbit didn't survive. But some of the more rabbit savvy veterinarians are becoming more proficient on picking up the symptoms of it and being able to act. That's actually, if I can take a little sidebar, but that's actually one of the beautiful results that come from when a rabbit vet is willing to do a post-mortem on a bunny who's passed away. She can then take the opportunity to see what was going on with that liver, or she had, and I'm talking about Dr. Saber, Catnip and Carrots, she has had permission from the owners to do the correction. It's so rare that veterinarians get the opportunity to practice liver torsion surgery. How are they ever going to practice that?
I still have Rosie's liver.
And Katie still has Rosie, if anyone wants to take a look at it.
The two of them have collections of stuff, you guys. Like one day, that's another Zoom we can do. Marianne show and tell of the stuff.
Oh yeah,